You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Are you studying for your Florida real estate exam? If you are, you need to check out our Pass First Try strategy. You're going to love this. It's 4 steps that we break down the process to study for your Florida real estate exam. So you're set up to pass your Florida real estate exam because that's what you're studying for, right? To pass your exam. It's 4 steps. Number 1, you learn the information. You've got to learn this to be able to pass the exam, but it doesn't stop at learning. Step 2, you've got to reinforce the basic, simple, key concepts. As you learn this information, keep reviewing the simple things. You don't need to know everything, but you got to review these basic key concepts. Step 3, you've got to test your knowledge. The exam's going to test your knowledge, so if you don't test your knowledge in advance, you won't find out if you know what you think you know until you take the exam. And then step 4 is be confident and prepared, because even if you know this material, you need to be confident that you know the material. Check out the full strategy at passfirsttry.com. That's passfirsttry.com.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida real estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of State of Real Estate. My name is John Carissimo. Today we're talking about the secrets to bigger commissions. Specifically, how you work smarter in real estate to be able to make more money faster. And we're going to approach this from a few different angles, both, not everything, reflecting back on what it is that you can actually control as a real estate professional. So we've got a great set of information to share with you today. A lot of tips and things that I've learned in my own real estate experience, not just as an associate, but as a broker helping other people start their real estate careers, as a real estate instructor. So whether you're brand new, or maybe you've been doing this for a while, or maybe you've even been doing this for years and you feel like maybe that you're stuck. You could be stuck in your current job and maybe just getting the real estate license alone is going to open up so many new potentials for you. Or maybe you have the license and you feel stuck in terms of even getting that first deal or getting past a certain level of deals. And so there's a few things we're going to talk about. They're going to be related to mindset. There's a few tactical things it is that you could actually implement in and of themselves to get bigger commissions. But at the end of the day, the foundation is going to come from a strong, bigger commission mindset, if that makes sense. The mindset of bigger commissions. Putting yourself in that right frame of mind and putting yourself in that correct framing of yourself and what you bring to the table. So we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper, but before we do that, we've got to make a plug for Tampa School of Real Estate. So if you want to get a Florida real estate license, not just for Tampa, you could be Miami, Orlando, Tallahassee, Jacksonville. We have students from literally not just the entire state, but all over the country and from 40 other countries worldwide that have taken our classes to get a Florida real estate license or continue their Florida real estate education. So if you have any questions about any of that, I'll put this right up on the board here to where you could call into this number, 813-333-2676. Call or text us at that number, 813-333-2676. And if you want to join us live right now, if you're watching on Instagram, if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Facebook, if you're watching wherever it is that we're restreaming this right now, let me just check this on how this looks on Instagram so the good people tuning on Instagram can read this for us. Because if you want to join the official live chat, if you have questions about anything that we're covering today, this website right here, tsre.us/live, that'll take you right to the official live broadcast on tampaschoolofrealestate.com. And you could reach out to our advisors at that phone number I've got there above, 813-333-2676. So again, you have any questions, you want to talk to an advisor, 813-333-2676. If you want to join the official live broadcast, tsre.us/live, because we will pull up the live chat before we wrap up for today for any questions it is that you might have on any of these concepts. Now, like I said, there's a lot that we're going to be talking about that's going to be related to mindset. And this is actually something that I learned studying people outside of real estate. It's actually a famous actor. I won't say who, because I know people could get about actors and how they feel one way or the other, so I don't want you jaded by this here. But this actor, I guarantee if I said the name, you would know the name. He was, I'll give you that, he was a he. Is a he. Gotta clarify that. And he was unable to get any roles in movies. And the reason why he wasn't able to get the part when he auditioned for these parts was because his mindset was that of somebody who is desperate. Somebody who is desperate to get this part. Whose life would end if they didn't get this part. And you know what it was that changed his career, that made him the person that, again, if I had mentioned his name, maybe you like him, maybe you don't, maybe you've seen his movies, maybe you haven't, but I guarantee you would have heard of him worldwide. And he made that shift and started landing these parts from his auditions because he changed his mindset from that of the perspective of somebody who is desperate to this part to the mindset that this director is desperate for me. This movie needs me. I am the perfect person to play this part in this movie, and this movie will be a disaster without me. It was adopting that mindset. And it's not just some woo-woo nonsense here. The reason why this works is because if your subconscious doesn't believe in yourself, if your subconscious thinks that you would be so lucky to get this part, then you're not going to be able to perform at your best. So if you want to be able to perform at your best, you need to believe that you are the best. You need to believe that you do have the resources that you need. You need to believe that you are the one with the advantage in the relationship between you and your client. And I love this analogy here with this actor, because just like an actor goes to audition for a part, very often are we auditioning for a client. We're auditioning trying to get a listing with a seller. We're auditioning trying to get a buyer brokerage agreement with a buyer. And if you haven't been doing buyer brokerage agreements, they're going to be industry standard come July. So that is something that, again, now creates that situation, almost like a listing appointment, where you're auditioning to show how valuable you can be and to hope that you get the part. You get to play the part in the movie that is their life of the realtor that gets them this next home, that helps them sell this home. And so when you frame it around this pretense here that, at the end of the day, you're really just playing this part. And just like an actor is going to play a part in a movie, and, there's some like these immersion actors that will go and they just go all in. They don't break character and they research and they live the life of this person. These like crazy method actors, and that's fantastic. But at the same time, you could get some really strong performances from somebody who doesn't do that. And just like you as a real estate agent, if you're brand new, you don't have to have lived, eat, and slept the life of a real estate agent for decades to be able to embody that role. You could have the lines, essentially. We call these lines in the real estate world scripts. And if you've been in any sort of sales profession before, you've maybe had some sort of script. Now, the good news about real estate is that you get to be your own boss, so you get to make up that own script. You can make it up there on the spot if you want, but I do generally advise against just making stuff up on the spot, because until you have lived, ate, slept, and breathed real estate for many years, you won't be that method actor that could just, snap right into the role. And so having the scripts, having the lines help you become that person that's going to command those top dollar commissions. And that's why it's good to not just research what are some good scripts, but really put something together in your own words, something it is that you're not trying to read a script. Think of any sort of award-winning actor or actress. They don't just simply read. It's not a reading of a movie. They're performing those lines. And that's what your role is as a real estate agent, that you're performing those lines. There's just a little bit more to it because there's no cut. There's no director yelling cut and all these other assistants. We're the one doing all the other work there. But what appears to the client, what helps us command a higher commission, is that confidence, that professionalism, that expertise that conveys when you have that. And I don't mean like a huge ego that you're full of yourself, but that you're confident in who you are and what it is that you can do. So that's the number one tip. That is the biggest, the number one, the first thing. Let's go put that on the board here. I don't know why our board camera isn't working today. The audio wasn't working earlier. Hopefully you guys could hear it. Let's head to the chat real quick. Make sure the audio is coming through okay. Can you hear me okay? Let me know in the chat if this audio is coming in okay. Otherwise, we might have to reboot the whole live stream here if it's coming in jarbled, because this computer is being extra weird today. Okay, it does look like it's coming through, at least on Instagram. Again, if you want to go to the official live broadcast, tsre.us/live. But let's go ahead and head over to the board here. So tip number one. Tip number one is that you want to, again, we'll call it the winner mindset. And not just that you're a winner, but that you are the expert. We'll put it that way. Just like this actor, he had to believe that he was the perfect fit for the role. He had to believe that he was the catalyst of this movie being a success. And that is what you have to think of yourself as. You are the catalyst for success. You know what? This might be what's going on right here with this camera. There we go. And again, if you guys have any questions, if you do want to join us in live, hello there we are. Go to tsre.us/live and join the official live broadcast here with us. But let's get back into this. So tips. Number one, the winner mindset. If you don't adopt this from the beginning, you'll struggle even to get your first commission, let alone at a steady income of real estate commissions. You have to believe that you are the expert. That is the key word here, is to believe. Think. That's how you spell it. However you spell it, just make sure you do it. See, I before E, right? Pretty sure. You don't even know how to spell in this day and age. To be a successful realtor, you don't have to be that smart. You don't have to spell. I mean, if you could use a calculator, you don't have to know how to do the math the hard way. You do have to pass the real estate license exam. And yes, there's a lot of rules that they test you on, but essentially a high school level education is what's necessary. And here's the thing, I'll share a secret with you. So parents that are tuning in right now, maybe you've got kids at home. This is somebody who employs many people, and I'm speaking to you as a good sized employer here in Tampa. Now, my views are not yet necessarily unique, but there are other views out there. But what I'm finding is that, we could find harder workers, more dedicated people that just have a high school education. I don't know what college is doing to kids these days, but it's not seeming like the advantage that it used to be. I don't know. But anyways, back to what we do here for a 1-week class to get your real estate license, to open up the doors to all of this. So number one, you got to believe you could do this, because you do this, you won't get the deals. Because if you don't believe in yourself, how are your clients going to believe in you if you don't believe in yourself? So, number two, and there's a lot of things we could go into. There's a lot of things that I'm thinking, okay, well, what are we going to call number two? We're going to call this number two just because I think it's what's relevant, but we might come up with some other things later that I think might be potentially more important. I don't know. We'll see where this discussion goes. But number two tip is going to be do the math. So, when I mean do the math, you might say, John, I hate math. I don't like doing math. So good news, calculators. Even better news, there's like full-on commission calculators that you can build into Excel spreadsheets, and even just ones that are forms online. There's so many different ways. There's accounting software that you could use. But one of the things that you're going to learn very specific, what math is going to be the business, the numbers math. That's something that you learn in your post-licensing course, specifically in the business planning segment of your post-licensing. So in the business planning segment, what you're doing is you're figuring out the commission math of essentially how much volume you need to do to hit your income goal. And you're also budgeting in your business expenses and so on and so forth. And that might be why you're here tuning in today saying, I want to be able to get a larger, bigger commission because I have all these expenses of doing business. So if I get larger commission, I could keep these expenses and make more money. Because it can be hard to cut expenses sometimes. Because sometimes these expenses are very essential parts of your business for one reason or another, whether that be the realtor membership so you get access to the MLS, maybe you're paying for some sort of leads or a website or whatever it might be. Especially as you're growing, you're moving beyond the stage of, let's say, trying to get a deal, but now you're trying to do more deals. So we'll come back to these tips here, and I'll talk about the math here, but I want you to understand the stages. I'm going to put this in the middle so if you're watching on Instagram still, you could read it. If you're watching on Instagram, go to tsre.us/live for the official live broadcast. You could actually chat with us on there as well, and you can see the full screen instead of just the middle of the screen. So essentially with your real estate career, you have many stages. Your first stage, number one, where you're starting out, is just trying to do a deal. That's where everybody starts. When you get your real estate license, they'll be your first deal. Even if you're licensed in another state, it'll probably become a lot faster and quicker and easier, but there's still going to be that first deal that you do here in Florida. And that's your first stage. And you don't want to get stuck in this stage here, because if you're just in the stage of trying to do a deal, and then you get a deal, and you do that deal, but then you're back to just trying to do a deal, and trying to do a deal, and trying to do a deal. So there's number one of just trying to do a deal. And then there's stage number two of trying to do more deals. And this is assuming that you already have a steady deal flow. What is the steady deal flow? It could be as much as one deal a week. Maybe it's just one deal a month. Maybe it's one deal every other month. Maybe it's 3 deals a year. But really the difference, I would say, that makes it from somebody who is truly in stage 2 versus in stage 1 is whether or not they've established systems. So that's really what I would say stage 3 is going to be more so. Is the focus more on establishing systems. Now, why do the roads lead here to establishing systems? Why are we trying to get to that stage of establishing systems versus just trying to do a deal? Isn't that what we do as real estate agents? We just do deals? Yeah, yes, that's one way to look at it, but you're leaving out a lot of detail. So you could be just trying to do a deal, or you could be trying to do more deals, so whether you've closed 1, 2, 3, whatever it might be. But as you start to get that steady deal flow, that's going to come from having systems. Systems of lead generation. Systems of follow-up. Systems of serving your clients. So what do I mean by systems? I don't mean like just computer technology, although computer technology can be involved as little or as much as you like. Essentially what makes these systems is there's a degree of automation where you're not doing everything. And so this is a big part of bigger commissions, because not only will this help you get more commissions, but it'll also allow you to have a little bit more to choose from in terms of being able to do deals. And I don't mean that you're not able to serve everyone, but especially as you start to generate systems, you start to see your top leads bubbling up to the top. And so what that allows you to do is that allows you to focus your efforts. And so for a few reasons that you're able to get not just more commissions, but even bigger commissions, is because when you have systems, that's more of a business than just somebody who's got a real estate license who's trying to do a deal. And this is the stage that you're in when you're the actor that's hoping and praying that you're going to get the part, instead of walking in there knowing that you will get the part. And if you don't get the part, the movie's going to be a disaster without you. If you don't get the part, the deal's going to be a disaster without you. And how do you know it's going to be a disaster without you? Well, because you're probably going to hire a real estate agent that maybe doesn't have business systems, because there's a lot of people out there that are just trying to do a deal, that are not, and maybe they do have a steady deal flow, but this is where if you've got a steady deal flow and all you're doing is trying to do a deal, is you're just constantly hustling everywhere you can trying to get some sort of business, and it's a lot of chaos, it's a lot of disorganization, and it's very easy to get burnt out doing that. And so that's where systems are going to come in to save you. The systems of, number one, lead generation to get that business, to just not even get the business, but just to create the opportunity for business. From whether it's door knocking, more automated systems could be direct mail. You could involve social media, advertising. You could be starting a real estate team where you're not the one doing door knocking, but you have other agents on your team that are out there doing door knocking, because you know how effective the boots on the ground strategy can be at really doubling down on your marketing efforts. So systems, those systems, again, it can be technology, it could be people, it could be processes. Or I'm going to make a whole slide just for systems. Because if you want bigger commissions, systems are essential. And again, systems of, number one, it's going to start out with process. Systems of your process. The process of working with sellers, the process of working with buyers, and then getting even more fine-tuning into the process of generating leads. Because when you can make things repeatable, That only comes through having a process, a step-by-step process. Here's what we do. We walk down the street. We go to the door. We knock on the door. We say, hello, how are you? My name is John with Epic Realty Group. The reason for my visit today is to share with you the news about what happened down the street, the news of the market, whatever it is. But when you, again, develop this process of repeatable, and look, fast forward through the conversation, hey, look, before I go today, I've got to make sure that you're signed up for our neighborhood newsletter. Are you already getting the neighborhood newsletter in your email? Do you know? Did you see the email we sent out the other day? Did you see the email we sent out this morning? No, you must not be on it. Let me put your email down here and put you down. You don't want to miss it. It's got all the events going on in the neighborhood, all the happenings, all the real estate happenings in terms of sales, but also community events, stuff going on, different coupons and deals going on in the neighborhood, but it's tailored specifically to insert neighborhood name here. So I want to make sure we have you on the list. Great. Perfect. And how do you spell your last name? Perfect. And one other thing, I'd love the opportunity to just be able to shoot you a quick text just to confirm that we got you set up and everything in there. Is that okay? Perfect. What's your phone number? You'll get pushback. You won't always get the phone number. That's okay. You get the email at least. You're getting them in your sphere. And you can start pulling them in. And that's where your process is. You'll have processes of follow-up. So going back into your systems, not just for generating the leads like how we just did there. We get that contact info, that name, that email, that phone number, and we could do that door knocking. We could do that out at some community event, some farmers market. We could do that just meeting random people. We could do that by spending advertising dollars and setting up websites and so many different ways it is that we could use to generate leads. We could do it just through calling and reaching out to the people it is that we know. But what's important is that you have a specific system, a process, something that is repeatable. Something that can be measurable. If you cannot measure it, it's not really a system. It's probably chaos, because if it can't be measurable, it cannot be manageable. You have to think of what it is that you could use to measure whatever that process, whatever that system is, whatever it is that you're doing. Because this is not just the process, it's also the people involved. The people become part of the system. You build a real estate team, you hire an assistant, you hire a transaction coordinator. These are all people that help you power your system. Now, maybe you could, again, you start with the processes. You start with the processes. You start with the measurables. You start with the manageables. What can you make into a repeatable, measurable, manageable process so you can start bringing in other people to help you with your vision? And the vision is going to be essential to getting bigger commissions. Because again, if you're just out here just trying to do a deal, let's go back over here. If you're just trying to do a deal, you're all over the place. Whereas when you're trying to do more deals, you're at least kind of straightening things out. When you're establishing systems, you're on the fast track for success, because you're taking what's proven and what's true and what you know works, and you're doing it again instead of wasting time making the same mistakes. That's a big part of your systems. Your systems are there, the processes, the measurables, the manageables, those are all there to make sure that you're executing on that vision. That we know this works, we keep doing what works, we change this up and we see how it doesn't work, and that's why we don't deviate from the system. Maybe you get lucky every now and then, and look, if something else is working more often than your system, then that's why you change the system. That's why you, as an entrepreneur, as a real estate professional, you are in charge of your destiny. Yes, you register your license with a broker, and there's going to be a platform for success at your brokerage. There should be, at least. There's things that you're getting from that brokerage, but ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to have your own individual processes based on how you lead generate, based on how you follow up, based on how you serve your clients. Because again, you get that lead at the door, or however it is that you're getting the lead, now your process of follow-up is going to kick in. Not just the follow-up you do after the sale, which is what's important for the exam, but the follow-up you do to nurture that lead. The outreach that you're doing. Hey, just wanted to send a quick message. Thanks. It was great meeting you today. You ever have any real estate questions or know anybody that does 24/7, call or text me. And you might say, well, John, I don't want people calling or texting me 24/7. They won't. And if they do, that's why you have voicemail. That's why you have do not disturb and all those options on your phone. And if it really bothers you that much, just get a second line just for business and get an answering service so that phone could actually get answered 24/7. So again, you maybe have people. Maybe there's other companies. Because you could hire people to answer your phones, or you could employ a company. There's all kinds of different things called answering services, and answering services, they've gotten better and better as time has gone on in terms of not just being able to collect a message, but answer some frequently asked questions, to be able to be a live, real person to provide support to your clients. So that way you're able to maintain that professional image. Oh, I could call in, talk to somebody, and get a message in. If you're the big-time, hot-shot real estate expert it is that you're trying to project, then if you're just always 100% reachable 24/7, you directly, and you're the one responding 24/7, that doesn't seem like you're such a hot shot. But when you have a team of people, and that team could be, again, just through the answering service. And that's a great way to get started, because if you don't have a lot of call volume, a lot of these plans, you pay per minute. So it's just based on how much time it is that they're taking messages for you or answering questions, or there's all kinds of options where they live connect you. They could schedule appointments, crazy stuff you could do with these different companies. And there's companies for lead generation. So if you don't want to generate the leads yourself, Zillow will be happy to sell you leads. Realtor.com would be happy to sell you leads. There's all these different companies out there that are willing to sell you leads if you don't want to lead generate directly yourself. So that's where you could outsource a big part of that process of lead generation to another company. And, you know, ultimately, whatever the lead source is, if it's a real person, if it's a phone number, if it's a working phone number and a name, that's potential. It's a person. And whether you're knocking on that door, I like the knocking on the door because you could do that for free. And free adds up. Just kidding, it doesn't. Free never adds up. Free you could do all the time. Only your time, though. So as you start to scale your business, as you get into bigger stages of establishing systems, you move on to stage 4. You're like, oh, John, I know there's going to be a stage 4. You guys like to do easy as 1, 2, 3. So what are we going into 4 now? Well, because you could keep leveling up your business. So you go from establishing systems to expanding systems. Expanding and improving systems. And this is generally speaking for really any business. Any business starts off just trying to do something, trying to sell something, trying to make some sort of money. As a real estate agent trying to get their first deal. But if you're not establishing any systems, you're not moving any further really beyond just trying to do a deal. And you might be, you know, just establishing some routines and systems of just, you know, things you do to try to get a deal. But if you're not consciously establishing systems that are, by definition, what I'm showing here for a system, that it's got a repeatable process, it's measurable, it's manageable, it might involve people, it might involve companies, it might involve technology. But however your system works, what's important is that you're working towards building and establishing systems, and then that's when you get into the improving systems, and phew, that's where you could really skyrocket. Here you're lost, confused, you don't know where to go. Here you might have a lot of business, but eventually what happens is you get burnt out if you don't have systems. If you're just constantly just running around trying to do more deals, just you're doing what you work and you're just trying to do more, but you're not being as systematic about it, eventually what happens is you burn yourself out. Again, yeah, you might do more and more, but at some point you're going to be like, oh, there's got to be a better way. And that is usually when people find a better way and then their career takes off again. And that goes through these things right here. The key word, the name of the game, which is system. And so we'll put that down as number 3. Number 2 is going to be do the math. And like I said, some of these might be a little bit more important because you might want to start. We'll put it this way. Have a system mindset. And that's not instead of the winner mindset. The winner mindset is going to be a requirement across the board, but you also want to be thinking, being, again, systems oriented, because as a real estate professional, you're no longer just an employee. This is your business. This could be anything that you make of it, but keyword, what you make of it, not what the world makes of you. Because if you just leave it for what the world and the universe to make of you without the input on your part, you're not going to achieve the success it is that you're after. The key thing is going to be aligning yourself with the right information, with the right people, on the right path, and that's going to require you to have the vision. You have that larger vision that you're working toward. That's why you want to have the winning, can-do, believer type of attitude. You're thinking systems oriented of how can I build this into a process? How can I measure this? How can I manage this? How can I stay on top of this? Because this is a significant contributor to my business. So how do I make sure I could grow this? That's what you're doing. You're growing. We'll throw another mindset up here as well, a growth mindset. Because what happens if you don't have a growth mindset is you flatline. And when you flatline for too long, you start to take a dive because, again, you're going to burn out. If you want to avoid burnout, you need to have that growth mindset. And you want to have the vision of where it is that you're going and the systems that are going to help get you there. And the math. I've been saving the math for the end because I just want to go over a couple of numbers here, but having this visualization of what this math is for makes this math a little bit more practical, which also makes it a little bit more understandable. So it's a little bit easier to do. And what the math ultimately comes down to, so it's going to relate to this, is the vision. And it's essential that you have a vision. The vision needs to be grand. It needs to be grand. It needs to get people excited. Now, that doesn't mean it needs to be the most exciting thing, the biggest, boldest plan ever. You don't have to be coming to me saying, John, I'm going to be the next trillionaire. I'm going to be the first trillionaire, the next billionaire, the first trillionaire. You don't need to be the biggest. So if you're a competitive person, don't think the biggest vision you could have. You could adapt your vision. But it should be grand. It should get people excited, specifically people being you. Specifically you, number one you, number two, everybody else that's important to that vision. And what do I mean by everybody else important to that vision? So yes, your vision is important because that vision could be it's the life ultimately that you want to have, the house that you want to live in, the car you want to drive or be driven around in, the toys that you want to have, the vacations or vacation spots that you want to have. But that vision is not just about you. It's two-sided. It's, yes, the things it is that you want, but then what it is that you have to put out there, that you have to provide in order to get what it is that you want. And that's where we really refine this vision a little bit more into how we help enough people. How we help enough people how we help enough people get what they want so we can get what we want. And we'll credit that to Zig Ziglar. The late, great Zig Ziglar, who would always preach that if you help enough people get what they want, you can get whatever it is that you want. And that's what your vision is about. Your vision is how, or basically what it is that you do. And that vision is going to translate into your business plan. And the business plan is how the vision becomes a reality. So your business plan is how your vision becomes a reality. And this is where you're doing the math. You're taking your basically income needed. And you're measuring this on a few different levels. You're measuring the level of your necessities, and then ultimately, again, what goes back to your vision. So you know the range it is that you need to be in. You need to be above that necessity range, but ideally, we really don't want to think about that too much. We need to think about how do we reach that vision range. So what is the income it is that we need? And then ultimately, how does that translate from houses sold, or we'll say properties sold, in case you're doing commercial, industrial, agricultural, land, whatever it might be. And that's why this is your business plan, because it's based on what you're selling. And so you'd have your average price point, your average commission, your commission split, you're factoring that all in to figure out what you make on average per transaction. And then based on the income it is that you want to create, how many transactions it is that you want to do. And what you'll very often find is you'll probably get to a point for your vision, especially if you're thinking big enough, where that vision is maybe something that's unattainable on your own. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that you need to shrink your vision. You just have maybe a checkpoint that you're going to get to before you get to your grand vision. That checkpoint of maybe hiring an assistant, hiring a buyer's agent, hiring a listing agent, hiring different people that could build your team to where you could even surpass the initial vision that you had projected. And so you're converting your property sold. You want to see how many leads it is that you've got to generate. And that's basically a very simple version of your business plan. How do the leads translate into the home sold, translates into the income needed? And then does that fulfill the vision? Now, maybe when you're doing these calculations here, that's where you start to play with the average sale price and the average commission. So we've done episodes before on business planning. We're not going to get into a full business plan, but if you search business planning on our website, you'll find a lot of videos on business planning. That website's tsre.us. Same place you could tune in live if you go to tsre.us/live. So you can join the official chat, the Q&A before we wrap up for today in case you do have any questions burning in you about anything we talked about. The recording will also be available at that page, tsre.us/live. And like I said, you could search for all kinds of different content like the business planning videos right on that website. Just hit the little search bar up in the top corner. But getting back to this, so we're not going to do business planning specific math because that would take a whole nother episode basically to do that. But good news, again, we have those recordings available for you here. But what I really want to hone in on is looking at these here. Because this is the stuff that you play with to dial in, checking these boxes of the commissions and income that's going to make you happy. And so I want to exemplify this a little bit here. So we're going to take a sale price of $100,000, just to keep the math easy. And let's say we're getting a 3% commission per side. Maybe that's what we're negotiating. We're negotiating a 6% overall with a listing agent. Maybe we're working primarily with buyers, and then we're again going by what we're seeing in the MLS for the properties we're typically showing. Maybe you're going off of your actual transactions and what has been your history and what is your average here, because that's the great thing about numbers, is especially with enough data, those averages start to really tell a very compelling story. And again, that's what's measurable, which can be manageable in our processes and systems. So 3% of $100,000 is $3,000. Now, maybe you're just starting out and you want to undercut the competition. No rule saying you can't. So you want to come in here and charge only 2% per side. That's $2,000. Now, you might be saying, Jonathan, we're talking about bigger commissions. Well, here we go. Here's bigger commission. If you've been undercutting and underselling yourself, because I know there's a lot of people, 3% is not a small commission. It's a big commission. There's plenty of properties that have a 2%, 2.5%, 2.25, 2.75. I've seen 1%. There's a listing right next door to me that's got a 1% commission that it's offering. And that's something that we might be seeing more of a trend as we move into the more buyer agency era that we're heading into post-July here with buyer representation agreements, where buyers are maybe taking on more of that responsibility. It's still negotiable, so that's also something that gets negotiated. But again, the big difference for a lot of agents, maybe not for some, because a lot of agents have been using buyer brokerage agreements for years. I've been using buyer brokerage agreements for years, but a lot of agents haven't been. And so that's going to be a big change if you haven't been using buyer brokerage agreements. But if you have been, you know why. Because it establishes the relationship. It establishes the compensation. And that's what you could use to be able to command a higher commission. Because let's say that you are going to go show a property. And in the MLS, the commission for that property, well, right now you can see this. In July, you want to be able to see this. But let's say you call the agent after July and they say, oh, yeah, the seller's willing to pay 2%. Well, if you wanted 3%, your buyer brokerage agreement will allow you to cover that extra 1% with the buyer. So the buyer's essentially kicking in an extra 1% on top of the purchase price instead of that 1% being built into the purchase price if it was 3% there. Does that make sense? So that's a big thing right there that you could do, especially with buyers, because that's where it becomes the most unpredictable. So going back to our business plan here. Come on. Go back one. There we go. So going back to our business plan, when we're talking about your average commission, you could know what your average commission is going to be if you're using buyer brokerage agreements, just like you're going to know it on the listing side because you're using listing agreements. Like I said, come July, buyer brokerage agreements are going to be industry standard as well due to the recent court rulings. And so with that buyer brokerage agreement, you're again in control as the buyer's agent of what your commission is going to be, regardless of what the seller is paying towards that or not. If anything, maybe you get a bonus in case the seller's paying out more. So that average commission, that's one way you can control this here. Just like if, let's say, we're up to 100, same sale price. And let's say we got a 4% commission. So if we're paying that on both sides, that's 8% commission total. But another thing you could do if you're the listing agent, maybe you're charging 6% and you're keeping 4% and you're paying out 2%. You could do that. Could be there in the paperwork. Now you might say, well, is that ethical? Can I do that? I don't know. You ask yourself that question. And don't ask yourself the question, is it ethical? Ask yourself the question, how do I do this ethically? So that shift in the way it is, this is something I learned from Robert Kiyosaki. It's not about asking enough questions. It's about asking the right questions. So chances are people are already really close with their questions. But again, it's about asking the right questions. Thinking back, what can I do to overcome whatever that situation is? Just like, and that's why I've been a big proponent of buyer brokerage agreements for years, because if the MLS said 2%, you don't have to worry about earning 2% if you have a buyer brokerage agreement that says 3%, because you're still getting 3%. It's just 2% of that is going to be covered for the buyer. So good news, buyer, you only have to kick in 1% because the seller's covering the other 2%. Or maybe we find a property where the seller is willing to pay 3% and you don't have to pay anything out of pocket. So that maybe is more reason why you choose this property. And so what that ultimately does, this does with the standardization of the use of buyer brokerage agreements, it's going to create a lot more transparency and clarity of what people are actually paying for real estate, which I think is ultimately a good thing. And what's ultimately going to matter still, just like it did before, is how you explain the... So we're going to put some scales here. Hold on. You know, like the little scales of justice, that type of thing. I'm not the best drawer. But point being is this one should be higher. Let's back this up a little bit. I don't want to lose that one though. That's a good little scale there. But I do want to make it more steep. There we go. That looks better. This is the secret to winning with your pricing on anything, is you have to have more value than the price it is that you're charging. Where it is you put your price. Notice I put the price high. Price is very high up here. And I did that on purpose because I want you to think big money. But if you want to be able to get that big money, you've got to provide more value, because if you know how these scales work, if you've ever played with one of these things here, we'll shrink it down for Instagram real quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about. If you've ever played with one of these scales here, you know what happens if we put all the weight on the price. If we're just focused on... Oh, hold on. Oh, what are we doing here? We don't want an arrow. This board's being too smart for us today. There we go. So a lot of agents, they'll make the mistake of focusing on the commission, focusing on the price, putting all the weight on the price, and forgetting about presenting the value. See here, they're light on the value. Their value is light and their conversation is focusing on the price, and guess what that does? And I mean by focusing on the price, your price, it's going to lower your commission. So if you want to drive your commission up, that's where you've got to provide more value. You've got to weigh down your value side to be able to drive the price up. So for you to be able to command a higher commission, that's where you want to be providing more value. And as long as the value is weighing you down, people are going to be happy with the price it is that they're paying, as long as they see that they're getting more value than the price it is that they're paying. But again, you go light on the value, you don't focus in your presentation to the client about the value, you just focus on what you get out of it. This is the price. Well, if that's what the conversation is about, why would they pick you? Because you're not very valuable, and it seems all you care about is the money. Might sound familiar. You maybe heard some people talk about bad experiences with salespeople with that. If all they care about is the money, and that's because if you don't care about the value the customer is getting, you're not going to get a very good price for whatever it is that you're selling, whether it's yourself or the property. Now, going back to this example here. So this is if we're talking about changing the percent, trying to get more value. But the other way that we could really work a lot smarter is, watch this. So here we're talking about 2,000, 3,000. Most we made, even if we charged a 4% commission, which I'll say that, at least for the Tampa area, that would be a big commission. I'd be super excited about a 4% commission. I'd be excited about a 3% commission. 2%, all right, at least it's something. Maybe still exciting if the property wasn't $100,000. Because let's change up the game a little bit here. Let's say that we're dealing with a $1 million property. We'll credit Mr. Grant Cardone with this concept of what they call 10Xing. Going from a $100,000 price point to a $1 million price point. Now you might say, well, John, the homes in my neighborhood are not $1 million, so I can't do a $1 million price point. Okay, well, where are the $1 million homes? Do you need to come to Florida? Where are you right now? Is it Wisconsin, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Missouri, Alaska, maybe Texas? We've had people from every state in the country. Maybe you're in Greece right now. Maybe you're in France, Germany, China, Australia, Brazil, Mexico, the Philippines. We've had over 40 countries people have taking a Florida real estate license class. And that's because, if they're wherever they're coming from, if what they're getting is maybe that you can only work so much harder here for that $100,000 price point. You might have the luxury of only having to drive a half hour to get to a $1 million neighborhood. Where one of my brokerage offices is located, The average price point in that neighborhood is $1.3 million. Average price point. That's right here in Tampa. $1.3 million average price point. So those neighborhoods are out there. And that's like this entire zip code. So if you could think of how can you put yourself in a better situation, and that's why we've had people from not just all over the country, but all over the world coming to Florida to get the real estate license. Because this is a great state to do real estate in because there's some really valuable real estate that's out there. So let's say you do the $1 million home. How much is that going to pay at even just a 2% commission? Well, 2% of $1 million, just like we 10x'd here, we're just going to add another zero here. So that's not $2,000. That's $20,000. And I'm not going to lie, you're probably going to have to step up your game a little bit to be able to command $1 million listing versus a $100,000 listing. There's a lot of agents that aren't thrilled about getting a $100,000 listing. You as a new agent, if you're brand new, a $100,000 listing might be, oh wow, look at this, I got a $100,000 listing, I can make thousands of dollars if I get this sold. Even if you're just making 2%, $2,000, that's huge for one sale compared to what commissions are for other industries. I mean, how many cars do you have to sell to get a $2,000 commission? Maybe not much if you're selling luxury cars. You might say, well, John, I could sell a Ferrari or something and make like $10,000. I don't know what they make on a luxury car like that, but let's say they did. Let's say they make $10,000. If you're in the car industry and you know like what some big commissions, some big money cars are, let me know so I'm not so ignorant when I'm trying to make this analogy here. But just like you could, again, if you've got the market out there, and maybe you live in an area that doesn't, but can you drive to it? Can you fly to it and move here? There's been so many people that have literally, over the past, like it's been ridiculous the last 4 years of people moving to Florida ever since COVID. There's already been a historically increase in Florida, but we're also some of the top labor markets in the country, so there's so much driving the growth here. It's ridiculous. It's fantastic. It's great. Because that does drive up prices. And as a real estate agent, that's great. We love higher prices as long as there's still people that'll buy them. Because those higher prices will get us paid more money. Maybe you don't like that, that's fine. You could do 10 of these houses. That's another way. You could make just as much money at the same commission rate doing 10 of these houses. But I bet it's going to be a lot easier to sell one house than it would be to sell 10, right? Would you agree? Is it going to be easier to... Now, you might say, well, John, it might actually be easier. You're right. Because if you have a system for it, then... This is a faster system. Selling $100,000 properties, because there's a lot more out there. There's a lot more of people that can afford a $100,000 property versus a $1 million property. These properties will take longer to sell, but there are higher commissions. And again, you could increase that commission because if you get to a 3%, then that's going to be $30,000 per side in one deal. There's people that don't make $30,000 a year right here in Florida, let alone other parts of the world. And you can make that in one transaction. Now, what if this $1 million home takes a year to sell because it's a $1 million home? And as you get higher in the price point, there is less affordability. There's less people that can afford a $1 million home versus, say, a $100,000 home. You can make this maybe a $100 million home, and then a $10 million home. And then a $1 million home, and then we'll say a $500K home. You get the idea. There's way less people up here that can afford these higher priced homes, and so what that does is it creates a longer time to sell. But it can be a big payday, but that's why, again, systems. You got to carry more listings. And that's where these properties might be a little bit harder to come by. But that's something where you want to be thinking when you're choosing a farm area, take into high consideration and do the math for the average sale price in that farm area before you start committing to advertising dollars there, because you don't want to be a year into spending money advertising only to outgrow that farm area because you don't want to take on $150,000 listings anymore. You only want to focus on $400,000 listings because you found out you could make 4 times as much, 3 times as much doing the same amount of work basically with a $400,000 and a $400,000 listing. That's still that's a lot closer to our national average price point of a home. So in the United States, you're usually looking somewhere around like $300,000 to $500,000 for an average home. Some markets maybe a little bit more, some markets maybe a little bit less. But that's still average, and you're still in that range with lots of buyers. And that's where a lot of people find that sweet spot, is in that average price range of, let's say, maybe 300 to 700 is maybe where that average range is a little bit more here in the Tampa Bay area. And also the loan limits that come out from the different, like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, that kind of helps guide what is considered an average home loan. But at the end of the day, what's important is that you do the math, because doing this math, you could very easily say, well, I sold 10 properties, but why do I still only have $20,000? I thought I was going to make a ton of money selling real estate. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe you have $30,000 because you're doing 3%. Okay. If you sold 10 of these, you'd have $300,000. That's big money. And we don't even have to talk about commercial. Let's say you want to do a commercial deal. And that commercial deal is, let's say, a $100 million commercial deal. And let's say it's only at 2%, because maybe it's such a big money deal, but I think we're going to need the calculator for this many zeros here. Let's pull it up real quick, because I know we're almost out of time. $100 million at a 2% commission is a $2 million commission. $2 million for one sale. Is it possible? Absolutely. Does this happen often? Yeah, depends on what you define as often, but it does happen regularly. You look at a large enough scale, it happens very often. And that's typically what you see in commercial real estate, is you cover a larger territory than in residential. You're focused typically on more smaller neighborhoods. But that same real estate license is going to work for residential, for commercial, for businesses, for agricultural property, industrial property, any type of real estate in Florida, including businesses. Those are assumed to be real estate. That's what you need a Florida real estate license for. So if you need to get the license, reach out to our advisors. Phone number is 813-333-2676. You can call or text us at that number. Or you could visit us online at tsre.us. We've got the information not just on getting your real estate license, but on your renewal requirements, on the post-licensing course and how that's going to help you with that business planning topic that we talked about today. If you haven't done your post-licensing yet and you already have your real estate license, what are you waiting for? Get enrolled now. We have on-demand options as well as live class schedules. But you want to take this as soon as you can, because it's going to help you better understand what you're going to do with your real estate license. It's going to give you a bunch of different information that's more about the business side of real estate as opposed to the laws and rules that were covered in your pre-licensing course. So if you haven't enrolled in that, we've got some great promotions going on the website right now. So go to tsre.us, or again, if you want to reach out to one of our advisors and ask any questions confidentially, whether it's about starting a career or advancing it, 813-333-2676. We'd love the opportunity to help you advance your real estate career. We're the highest rated real estate school in Florida. So many people ask us how we do it. How do we have so many phenomenal reviews on us? And the reason why is we're focused on helping you become our success story. We're not just trying to teach a class. We're not just trying to help you pass an exam. We're trying to help you become a success story. And that's why we're here every single Friday, 12 noon. Make sure you're subscribed. If you put in your email pretty much anywhere on tsre.us, you'll get email reminders whenever it is that we go live. Like I said, we have a huge archive of so much content. Everything you could possibly ever want to know about real estate is probably in one of our videos that you can find right at the same website, tsre.us. So log on there, check it out. You can access all these different videos completely free. We have a lot of them also on YouTube and Facebook and so on and so forth, but the full collection of them, the full unadulterated collection, is going to be at tsre.us. So look, that's about all the time that we've got for today. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back next Friday, 12 noon Eastern time. Until then, have a fantastic weekend. Have a phenomenal rest of your Friday, and I'll see you next Friday at 12 noon Eastern time. So you just got your real estate license. How can you jumpstart your real estate business? the number one thing you should do before you do anything else is post-licensing. Now look, this is already a requirement, so you're gonna have to do it anyways, but here's why you wanna do it early. The sooner you do post-licensing, the sooner you're gonna learn the real-world concepts in post-licensing that will help you create a business plan, that'll help you plan for your success in real estate. Post-licensing is all about real-world topics that are usable, that'll help you grow your real estate business. And at Tampa School of Real Estate, we have the best post-licensing courses around. Find out more about how post-licensing can help you jumpstart your real estate career. Go to postflorida.com. Have you been thinking about getting your Florida real estate license? Look, the process is probably easier than you think. We break it down step by step, how much it's going to cost, what it is that you need to do to get your Florida real estate license. Find out all of that and more at licencefl.com. Again, that's licencefl.com. Are you studying for your Florida real estate exam? If you are, you need to check out our Pass First Try strategy. You're going to love this. It's 4 steps that we break down the process to study for your Florida real estate exam. So you're set up to pass your Florida real estate exam because that's what you're studying for, right? To pass your exam. It's 4 steps. Number 1, you learn the information. You've got to learn this to be able to pass the exam, but it doesn't stop at learning. Step 2, you've got to reinforce the basic, simple, key concepts. As you learn this information, keep reviewing the simple things. You don't need to know everything, but you got to review these basic key concepts. Step 3, you've got to test your knowledge. The exam's going to test your knowledge, so if you don't test your knowledge in advance, you won't find out if you know what you think you know until you take the exam. And then step 4 is be confident and prepared, because even if you know this material, you need to be confident that you know the material. Check out the full strategy at passfirsttry.com. That's passfirsttry.com.
The most powerful tool to study for your real estate exam is the Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate. We've used our years of experience in preparing students for the Florida real estate exam to bring you the most powerful exam study tool available. In the Question Simulator, you'll be able to go directly to a particular unit so you can focus on the sections where you need the most practice. We have also included the percentages of each unit so you know which units are the most important for your real estate exam. Every question will immediately give you detailed feedback, which is almost always more important than the question or the answer themselves. After completing all the questions in a particular unit, you can go through question by question and review any that you've gotten wrong. You could also print out a report at the end of each quiz. The Question Simulator from Tampa School of Real Estate is 100% mobile compatible, so you can practice with test questions anywhere you have your phone with you. Enroll now at questionsimulator.com and get ready to pass your exam.
You are watching
State of Real Estate. Every Friday at 12 noon Eastern Time. Grow your real estate business. You're watching State of Real Estate.